but as we've said, that was after the bad tyre choice in Hungary. Nicolo Bulliger with the pole position, lining up alongside Toprak Razgatlioglu, who only needs a top 7 finish to be crowned world champion. We are moments away from what should be the title decider. Toprak's 3rd chance at taking the 2025 world crown. For the first time since the 2021 campaign, when Toprak Razgatlioglu claimed his first title, the Motul FIM Superbike World Championship goes down to the final day of the season. But to avoid a last race decider, Toprak need only finish in 7th place this morning, and now it would take a miracle for Nicolo Bulliger to overturn the odds. Razgatlioglu has finished 31 consecutive races in the points, his only scoreless day, the 28th of February at Phillip Island, and when he has finished since Assen, he's always been in the top 2, equaling Colin Edwards' 2002 record run of 24 consecutive podiums. Toprak Razgatlioglu is on the verge of his 3rd world title. Alex Raby and Steve English for the Tissot Superpole race at the Pirelli Spanish round. Steve, can Toprak Razgatlioglu win the title decider, something he's failed to do in 2021 and again last year?
Yeah, it's one of those things for Toprak. It's about trying to get it across the line. For BMW, they want to win the Manufacturers' Championship. If they're to have a chance of that, they really need to win this Superpole race, because it's going to be difficult going up against Bulliger in the longer race this afternoon. For Toprak, top 7 is all he needs to do to wrap up the championship. It sounds simple, it should be simple, but racing very rarely simple. And we saw in yesterday's race, Toprak made a good start, led in the opening couple of corners, but then was attacked by Bulliger, ran wide into turn 6, had to come back through the group. If he does that again in this race, it's very difficult to beat Bulliger, but the shorter race, that's his chance.
Quick word on the battle further down the order, because just as in Estoril last time out, really the top 9 on the grid here have been the riders a cut above the rest. But should there be a little bit of attrition, as there was with Jonathan Ray's crash yesterday, then what we would expect to be the fight for 10th could become a fight for points and a place on the 3rd row of the grid for race 2.
And that's the key thing in this race. It's, as I said earlier, all about track position, and that's the key for all the riders, whether they're fighting for the podium positions or for that 9th spot as well, because there's half a dozen riders can be on the podium alongside Razgatlioglu and Bulliger, but that 9th place is critical to give you a decent grid position for race 2 as well.
Jonathan Ray, top Yamaha 4 times at the last 3 rounds, crashed out of race 1 yesterday. Superpole race, his best shot at getting onto the rostrum for what would be the first time in 2025 and only the 2nd time on Yamaha machinery. And he has been competitive over these shorter sprints, as I said on the grid. 19 Superpole race victories since the format was introduced in 2019. So one eye on Jonathan Ray and the fight for 3rd position, one eye, as much of it as you can spare, for that battle for 10th position that may be worth points should there be attrition at the front. But all eyes on the World Championship fight, and it's only a top 7 finish that Razgatlioglu needs. Nervous moments in BMW. It has been a nervy end to the season. An end of campaign back-to-back in Estoril and Jerez, with 6 races in just 9 days. This the 5th of them, and likely a title decider. The championship comes down to the final day of 2025 season, and we are underway with the Tissot Superpole race in Jerez. And Razgatlioglu has made a flying start from the middle of the front row and immediately launches alongside Nicolo Bulliger, who tries to go all the way around the outside, but is boxed out. Good start from Remy Gardner once again. He tries down the inside of Alex Lowe, side by side with Jonathan Ray. Bautista's got away, not too badly, ahead of Andrea Locatelli. Oh, 2 riders have gone down into the gravel trap. Jonathan Ray and Remy Gardner, I think that was, who have come to grief. And up at the front, Razgatlioglu still leads, but the top 4 have now broken well away, and that's a golden opportunity for Alvaro Bautista in 5th. And Bulliger clips Toprak Razgatlioglu, and the championship leader goes down and out, and the World Championship could well now go down to the final race of the 2025 season.
Yeah, we've seen it time and again where Bulliger is so strong through turn 4, but that contact into 5, Toprak said in yesterday's race through 5, they had a moment with each other, but Toprak out of this race, and we're going down to that final race of the season potentially if Bulliger is able to come through and win. And
that's assuming there's no penalty applied for Nicolo Bulliger, of course. Lap 1 of 10, and the top 2 in the championship have their first big flashpoint, their first major coming together of this title race.
Ultimately, the penalties that can be offered to Bulliger are long lap penalties, and we've seen him have such a clear pace advantage that he needs to get his head down now. Time trial for the next few laps. and give himself the chance to be able to still win the race.
And unfortunately, Jonathan Rea and Remy Gardner coming to grief on the opening lap as well. So it has been a dramatic start to this Superpole race.
Yeah, and you can see for Jonathan, he made a really good start from the third row of the grid, tried to get down the inside into turn one, and then has that incident with Remy, and shame to see Johnny away on the stretcher for it.
Alvaro Bautista as early as lap 2, challenging for a place on the podium here. He makes his move into turn 1 on Alex Lowe's. Lowe's closes the door.
Alvaro, the only rider out there with the Q tyre as well in that lead group, as Garrett Gerloff runs off at turn 1, but that's going to give him the immediate advantage in this one. But as the only rider in that group, is it a risk to be with a softer tyre?
Worth a try, isn't it, for Bautista, because we know in the second half of races he's better at managing the tyre anyway. So Bautista launching straight towards the podium positions. Let's see what happened again on the opening lap.
And you can see for Bulaga coming from so far back that it's going to be very difficult to not justify the stewards looking at that. For some of the decisions we've seen earlier this weekend, this is one where ultimately for Bulaga, he's able to hold that tighter line, but it's also Top Rack's corner. He's well in front of coming into it.
Latest from the stewards is that the turn 3 crash, Remy Gardner and Jonathan Rea, will be reviewed after the race. The incident at turn 5, Toprak Razgatlioglu's crash, you would suggest caused there by Nicolo Bulaga, is under investigation by the stewards at present.
You'd have to think it's very difficult not to see how there's something for that, but for Bulaga, he just needs to focus on opening his lead at the front, and he's doing that. He's got a 2-second lead now over Ian One.
Yes, reality for Nicolo Bulaga is that if it's a long lap penalty, it's very unlikely to make a difference. If it's something more severe than that, then it could still settle the World Championship, because Nicolo Bulaga does need to win this race.
Ultimately, the penalties are dictated by what we've seen earlier in the season. The penalty for this, if there is one, and the stewards will have to make that decision, is long lap penalties. So for Bulaga, he needs to get the head down, and he's opened up a 2.5-second lead. A 37.6 from him now is a new lap record. That's a second faster than we went in the Superpole race.
Start of lap 3, Alex Lowe's, having already been picked off by Alvaro Bautista, now loses a place to Xavi Vierque. So Lowe's down to 5th position. Bautista into the podium spot. Will be keen to clear Andrea Iannone as soon as possible here. Confirmation of a long lap penalty for irresponsible riding for Nicolo Bulaga. But it's a penalty that might not even cost him the race lead here, because Bulaga has escaped 2.5 seconds away from Andrea Iannone in 2nd position. And now the Ducatis aren't going to be too keen to fight Bulaga. Razgatlioglu out, a last race decider in 2025, and Bulaga could easily rejoin here, still at the head of the field. Andrea Iannone now 2.7 seconds behind, as Michael van der Mark puts an ambitious move there on Alex Lowe's, rubs him with his bike and makes his way through. So that pushes Alex Lowe's down now to 6th place. And next to have a go at Alex Lowe's, Taz McKenzie, who's riding a Stormer up in P7. But all eyes on Nicolo Bulaga at the head of the field. If he wins this race, the championship gap is down to 22 points, and we go to a last race decider here in Jerez.
Toprak would still need 3 points in that final race this season, but for Bulaga, with the long lap penalty, he sees it on his pit board, he sees it on his dashboard as well. He's got a 3-second lead. He can take that penalty and still lead the race. This is, for Bulaga, the perfect scenario.
Lap 3 with Nicolo Bulaga out in front. This is where the long lap loop is for Bulaga, and he will dart to the outside line, serve it as quickly as possible, and still rejoin at the head of the field. And the 2 riders behind him, Iannone and Bautista, aren't close enough and don't have the momentum to challenge back in towards turn 1. Nicolo Bulaga escapes wiping out his championship rival with just a long lap penalty, and 12 points to be gained here by Bulaga.
You could see for Bulaga there as well, whenever he rejoined, he was able to clip that arrow that tells you where you need to be. As long as your wheels are within the white lines, you're fine. But for Bulaga, he's able to take the penalty, still leads by 2 seconds from Ian One.
BMW's hopes of the Manufacturers' Championship in 2025 go up in smoke. And Toprak Razgatlioglu, you can see the gesture there as he throws off the helmet. He is furious.
And rightly so. You can see how far in front of Bulaga he is at this moment. And Bulaga is able to hold that tight line, but with that comes the responsibility of not having that incident with Toprak. And ultimately, I don't think Bulaga's gone out to take Toprak out or anything like that, but he's caused that incident, and he's able to get away with it where he still holds this big lead.
Bautista in front of Andrea Iannone. In the background of the shot, Alvaro Bautista is through for 2nd place. And with Toprak Razgatlioglu out of the action, an extra spot on the podium opens up. Bautista could be looking at matching his best result of this season so far, and also serves as a handy rear gunner for Nicolo Bulliger. Not that he needs it, frankly. Still over 2 seconds clear at the head of the field after serving a long lap penalty. Could an argument be made for a more severe penalty there for Nicolo Bulliger than something that's cost him less than 3 seconds?
Not really, because that's how the rule book is. And that's the precedence that's been set across the board. And Bulliger has basically served that penalty now. And we've seen it where he hasn't been penalised too often through the course of the season for different infringements. So ultimately, he's had the fair penalty on the basis of what the FIM rulebook is.
I would say he's had the standard penalty or the basic penalty, but certainly for unfair riding, there are more tools in the toolkit of the FIM if they want them. Have they gone for the easier option there to not get too involved with the championship scrap?
They've gone for the option that there is the precedence for. And again, like I said earlier on, it's not where Bulliger looks like he's immediately gone in to try and lift Toprak out of the race, but that is in effect what has happened. And ultimately, you have to make your decisions as an FIM steward based on what you have available to you, and that's the penalty that's available.
Well, from a neutral perspective, I wouldn't have minded seeing a double long lap penalty and actually make him work for this race victory, but it does look as though Nicolo Bulliger is setting sail now in the Superpole race, and fingers crossed that we do get to see him make the finish now and win this race on track and take us to give Toprak the opportunity to win the championship on track in race 2 this afternoon, because of course if Nicolo Bulliger doesn't win this race for whatever reason, mechanical or a fall, the championship will be decided in pit lane for Toprak Razgatlioglu.
Yeah, and for Toprak it's now a case of trying to get yourself ready for 2 o'clock to be able to go out there and try and win the championship in race 2, but he's going to be fired up for it as well.
So Bautista in second place, half a second clear of Andrea Iannone. Xavi Vierque, new personal best lap last time around, was half a second faster than Iannone. So Vierque will be closing on Iannone here and with an opportunity to get up onto the podium.
Yeah, and there's a podium at stake for all these riders. And when you look inside this group, the likes of Taz McKenzie on the number 95 machine, he's given everyone a good reminder of what he's capable of doing in World SBK, running up there in 6th spot, 2 seconds back of Iannone halfway through the race.
Bold from Andrea Locatelli as he makes his way in towards turn 1 and through on Michael Vandermark. I think Axel Bassani got sucked in a little bit wide there, trying to go with Locatelli, but still holds on just ahead of Iker Lecuona. Lecuona has been closing on him a couple of tenths of a second a lap, and there's a place on the 3rd row of the grid available here for him as Andrea Locatelli defends that 7th place, having made his way through on Michael Vandermark.
I'll tell you what, through turns 3 and 4, Mikey on the number 60 bike really trying to push to be able to bring himself back in to attack Locatelli. This is going to be the incident for Jonathan Ray and for Remy Gardner, and you can see there Remy's lost the front and Johnny's basically left with nowhere to go there. That's just unfortunate for them. You'd wonder just how over the curb Remy was whenever he loses the front there, but such a shame for Ray and a shame for Remy as well, because he was on for a decent showing in this one after a good performance yesterday inside the top 10.
High-speed crash as well, and unfortunately we saw the stretcher involved down there as well, so hopefully everything okay, particularly for Jonathan Ray, of course, who's due to embark on his final race in World SBK later on this afternoon. Fingers crossed for all of the riders, in fact, who've been involved in crashes on that opening lap. This is a reminder of the championship standings. If things were to stay as they are at present, 22 points the gap. That really was the only way that we went down to the final race. A crash for Razgatlioglu and a win for Nicolo Bulliger. And that's exactly the way it has transpired this morning, unless misfortune now befalls Bulliger. He's had his own misfortune over the course of this season, you'd have to say. As we move now into lap number 7, 4 to go. Bautista 3.5 seconds behind. There's no way he's going to launch an attack on Bulliger, even if he had the pace to do it, which he doesn't. Iannone 6/10 of a second behind in 3rd, has held off and found a little bit of extra pace last time around, actually lapped faster than Bautista as well, just to make a little bit of a margin over Xavi Vierque. And Alex Lowe sticking right with Vierque. Still a chance for a podium scrap later on. 1 second covering 3 riders in the battle for 3rd place. Just want to make a quick mention as well of Taz McKenzie doing a super job here. P6 for him. That would be his best ever finish in World SBK if he can hold on to it.
And running fast times wise, 1/4 of a second faster than Iannone last time around. too much ground for him to make up to those riders in front of him, it looks like. But if he's able to come away with the top 6, that's a great finish. And when you look at what for the Bonobo team, it's been all the way through this season. Phillip Island was really strong for them with Scott Redding, but this is the best we've seen from them since, really. Yes,
reality is he would be looking at 9th place as things stand, probably, if it weren't for those incidents. And yet, he's ahead of Andrea Locatelli, and that, for example, would be a major scout.
And that's the thing, even if it was 9th position for him, it's still a really good showing, and Taz doing what he can to try and keep the riders around him honest, keep Locatelli at bay. There's only a second between him, Locatelli and Van der Mark, so you got to try and fight it out for that 6th on the grid in race 2.
Yes, and 2 fights are going on. Xavi Vierke 0.3 of a second ahead of Alex Lowe's. Taz McKenzie only 0.3 of a second ahead of Andrea Locatelli. The margin at the front is crushing, but we do still have Alex Lowe's trying to get on terms with Vierke, and we'll see them just making their way down the start-finish straight. It's only around 600 metres here at the Ángel Nieto circuit in Jerez. And further back, Axel Bassani has dropped behind Iker Lecuona for 9th. So 9th place now for Lecuona. Bassani still right with him, and that's for a place on the 3rd row of the grid. Particularly valuable for Lecuona, of course, who originally came from P15.
Yeah, and for Lecuona up there in the top 9, he's the only other rider out there in those leading positions that's on the Q tire like Alvaro Bautista. So himself and Bautista making the best use of it in the early stages. We'll see if Bassani's able to come back at him in the closing stages.
Bautista fastest man on the circuit on lap 7, so it doesn't look as though he's struggling too much with the tyre life there, as he begins now to pull away from André Iannone. Iannone's dropped Vierke as well, so it is looking like a podium position for him. But what a storming ride, as we've said, from Taz McKenzie. 60 Superbike starts under his belt coming into this race, but yesterday was only his 3rd top 10 finish, and all of them have been in this 2025 campaign. Had an 11th place finish in the Aragon round for 5 points from race 2 there. But the Superpole race, he scored points in Assen. He scored points again in Balaton Park, and he's looking good over the 10-lap distance here in Jerez.
Yeah, and for Taz, not only is it the best we've seen from him, it's important to be able to see a performance like this, because with his couple of years on the MIE Honda, whether it was in Super Sport or in the Superbike class, he didn't have the bike underneath him to show what his capabilities were. With the Ducati, you get that opportunity, and he needs to grab it with both hands. He's doing that now, and he's gotten faster and faster as the season's worn on since he replaced Scott Redding.
Right, we're back in now for BMW, the #1 bike, and he's got to wait 1 race longer to be confirmed #1 again in 2025. Lap 9 of 10. Nicolo Bulliger still leading comfortably. He's dropped his pace off into the 1:39s now just to bring this safely home, but he's not under threat from behind. Big gaps opening out, other than this scrap for 4th position, and still the duel ongoing for P6 as well. Xavi Vierke 1:39.4 last time around, and Alex Lowe's only 0.008 of a second slower than him. Taz McKenzie in 6th position, 1:39.6, and Locatelli faster, but by less than 1/10 of a second, so being kept at arm's reach for the moment at least. And we saw for Alex Lowe's yesterday that once he was passed by Xavi Vierke, he couldn't get back through on him to get to recover at that 5th place. And here they're fighting it out. It's for P4.
Yeah, and the opportunity once again of having that 2nd row spot. You can see for Iannone doing a good job there just to make sure that he's got that bit of a margin. Another really good ride from Andrea. This race, he's got the pace. In the longer race yesterday, he had track position, came away with a 4th place finish. But a great reminder of what Iannone can do at the tracks that really suit his style, and he's able to get the most from that Ducati.
Yes, and increasing his margin now over this fight for 4th position as Vierke slips back into the clutches of Alex Lowe's. And Lowe's has got so much speed through the final sector, but can he use it in towards turn 13? Best opportunity, Lowe's almost alongside, and Vierke struggling to get it stopped. Lowe's then will have to cut back off that final turn, but the run down the start-finish straight should be where the Honda excels, and Xavi Vierke holds on going into the final lap for 4th.
You can see for Lowe's as well, trying to get the bike upright a little bit earlier than Xavi, just so he's able to be on more gas down the straight, but the Honda's just got that grunt out of the corners.
Andrea Locatelli ahead of Taz McKenzie. You saw them in the background of the shot. So Locatelli recovering 6th position. That'll push McKenzie back onto the third row of the grid for race 2 this afternoon will still be as good as anything he has done in World SBK Mackenzie. Lekuona in 8th position, and Michael van der Mark now ahead of Axel Bassani as well, and that's important for van der Mark. Gets him up onto the third row of the grid for race 2 this afternoon, and leaves Bassani a little bit further back. So a shame for Axel Bassani after his strong initial start. Yeah,
and ultimately, if you're that unlucky rider outside the bubble in 10th spot, it really does punish you quite a bit going into race 2 as well.
Well, it is Nicolo Bulliger who is making his way through turn 8, who will narrow the championship deficit to 22 points and will keep the series alive. 4 seconds clear of Alvaro Bautista. Second, the gap back to Andrea Iannone. This is the fight for 4th position. Xavi Vierque versus Alex Lowes. And Lowes makes the dive down the inside, a distance back, and he's going to overcook it. Can't get it stopped in time. Vierque comes back through. Alex Lowes had to try something on this final lap ahead of that final sector where he's at his strongest, but Vierque knows enough this time.
And needed to try it into somewhere a little bit different to make that move. Catch Vierque by surprise, just didn't quite manage to make it stick.
Well, the only way we were going to go to the final race of this 2025 season was with a win for Nicolo Bulliger, and with Toprak Razgatlioglu hitting problems, and that's exactly the way it's transpired. Bulliger wins the Tissot Superpole race here in Jerez, and we have a last race decider in 2025. Alvaro Bautista crosses the line for 2nd position, and Andrea Iannone, 238 days since his last rostrum finish, takes 3rd position at the 2025 Spanish round. 4th for Xavi Vierque, his best result of the season. Alex Lowes will round out the top 5 after falling narrowly short in his battle for 4th, and Andrea Locatelli, with a damage limitation ride, takes 6th position, but in the fight for 3rd overall, he will go into the last race 20 points behind Alvaro Bautista, and to get a 2nd position finish in race 2, it would be a tall order for Locatelli. So it looks as though that 2nd position for Bautista has locked down the bronze medal for him in 2025.
So the shake of the head there from Alex Lowes alongside Nico Bulliger, making it pretty clear what he thought of Bulliger's move, and muted celebrations, I think it's fair to say, down in the Aruba Ducati pit box as well. Ultimately, it's one of those situations where Bulliger has caused that crash. He's had his penalty. He still comes away with the win. He comes away with 12 points. Very understandable, the reaction from Toprak, the reaction from BMW. And also, you can see that from some of his rivals out on track. But ultimately, the penalties that are available to the stewards are pretty much prescribed earlier in the season. Be interesting to see if there is any further discussion about it, whether there's grid penalties or anything like that. But ultimately, difficult to see how that can be the case.
No, I think once they've given a penalty, that's what they've decided, and they can't add anything further on unless there's an appeal or something like that. But I think the problem for me is the optics of it, because the only way that the championship went down to the final race essentially was a non-score for Toprak, because if Toprak finishes, he's on the podium and the championship is won. Then the only rider who really benefits from Toprak being out is Nicolo Bulliger, and he's the one who collides with him, and Bulliger makes back 12 points. Basically, Bulliger makes 12 points because he's taken out the championship leader. And so I can understand it. It absolutely doesn't look good when all you get is a 3-second penalty and still win by 4 seconds.
Yeah, and realistically, the moment that the incident happened, we talked about the fact that the long lap is, in all likelihood, the penalty that he'll get, because Bulliger hasn't been penalised much through the season, so the precedent is there for that. Doesn't make it any easier for Toprak, doesn't make it any easier for BMW, doesn't make the situation right either, but the rules are black and white, and there is some nuance to them, but ultimately that was always going to be the decision that was made. Also, it's fair to say that for Bulliger's perspective, he's leaned off on the right-hand side of the bike. He can't fully see where Toprak is, but he knows he's behind Toprak. He knows he has to be aware of Razgatlioglu, and he's the cause of that incident, caused that crash.
Yes, ultimately, he's the one who's behind and trying to make the move, and he hasn't been able to do so cleanly. And the stewards agree that Bulliger was the cause of that collision because they've given him a penalty. The only question is, does the penalty fit the crime? And I must admit, my argument on the basis of what we've seen there is probably not. But I do also understand your perspective that is the standard penalty for that kind of incident. So
you can see and hear the reaction down there as well.
And you can't be surprised because they're waving Turkish flags, so obviously they're not going to be celebrating what's happened there. It's an uncomfortable moment for Nicolo Bulliga, and this is the moment as well for Ducati to put their arm around their rider and say, great job, you've won the race, we go to the final race of the season. Toprak's only one mechanical failure away from losing this World Championship now.
Yeah, and we said on the grid that ultimately it'll come down to what happens and the luck that you get, and Toprak's out of luck in this race, but he still has the opportunity to go out and win the race tomorrow. And like I said, I don't think Bulliga's gone in to take Toprak out. I don't think anyone believes that. That's just the end result of it, and ultimately that's what happens in racing. It's the exact same move that Bulliga made yesterday, the exact same move that he made a few times last year. That's where his bike works well.
Nicolo Bulliga just giving the thumbs up to the Turkish fans. There's not really much point in engaging. They were always going to be vociferous as he makes his way back in. The reality is 22 points the gap for Nicolo Bulliga. So again, the championship situation only changes if Toprak non-scores, basically. If he has an incident, a fall, another collision with Bulliga, or a mechanical failure. I think it's worth mentioning as well, for the Manufacturers' Championship, that's settled effectively because 19 points is the gap, so Ducati only needs 7 to have it over the line, and they have so many Ducatis that will all score that's a dead duck. And so the reason I mention that is not because I'm favouring the Manufacturers' Championship. The reason I mention it is it worth Toprak now just lining up, letting Bulliga go, taking second place, making sure that he's not anywhere near any possible contact, because knowing the Manufacturers' Championship is won anyway doesn't make any difference now whether he finishes first or second in race 2 this afternoon.
Ultimately, that would be the right thing to do. I think that you're going to see Toprak absolutely charged up into race 2, and that's what makes it interesting.
It does.
Because anything could happen in race 2 now. I think that Razgadioglu will be out there to prove a point. You can see here on the run through turn 5 just how far back Bulliga comes from, but you can see as well Toprak's line, a little bit like in Aragon, through the last corner in Aragon, the Ducati's able to hold that tighter line, and Toprak's line takes him wide. It takes him wide because he tries to cut back towards the second apex through Cedo Pond's corner, and the Ducati's able to hold that inside line a lot easier, and that's what puts them on that collision course. Ultimately, the responsibility is on the rider behind, and Toprak hasn't made a big mistake through there that's opened the door. It's just the lines between them.
Yes, polite conversation being had there. Ultimately, I'm sure that BMW will send someone up to have a word with the stewards about the decision-making process there. But as we've said, it's the standard penalty that they have awarded. Could it have been tougher? Certainly, the rules allow for irresponsible riding, more severe penalties. But as you say, in the context of a season as a whole, where Bulliga's had no warning for any other infractions or irresponsible riding, first incident, I think the stewards will be able to justify their decision there. Quick look at the race results. Bulliga, Bautista, Iannone. Championship, 22 points, Razgadioglu to Bulliga, 20, Bautista to Locatelli. It is a first podium finish for Andrea Iannone since Phillip Island in February. 27 starts without a podium, and 238 days since his last rostrum finish. The Maniac is back.
Andrea Iannone, at long last, back on the podium. It's certainly been a long time since we've seen you here.
Yes, it's a really strong race, a really hot race, but so when the races are like this, I'm really happy. It's really fun to ride always on the limit. So I will choose another tire, another spec, and at the end choose better than me, but we made our best and we are happy for this podium.
Thank you, Andrea.
Ciao, thank you.
Quite right to be happy, and I think that okay, the podium is there because Toprak Razgadioglu falls, because ultimately Bautista's choice of the Q tyre gave him a step in the first 10 laps that he didn't have yesterday. But from Iannone's perspective, he's not been far away for the majority of the last few rounds. Aragon, 2 fourth places on Sunday. Estoril, we saw 5th in the Superpole race. Race 2 was a disaster and went away for him, but he should have had podium pace in that one as well. 4th place yesterday, so the podium has been coming. And if these last 3 rounds were representative of what we'd seen all season long, you'd fancy that he'd have a ride already for 2026.
Yeah, and ultimately we want to see Iannone on the grid. We want to see him fast. We want to see him able to contend. And we haven't seen enough of that over the course of 2 years. But on his good days, he's still Andrea Iannone. He's still got all the speed and the talent that made him to be Ducati star in waiting in his MotoGP career, but he's still the flawed rider that's had those issues in his past as well.
Alvaro Bautista, second position for him. This one a crucial podium because he puts one hand on the bronze medal in 2025.
Alvaro Bautista. Alvaro Bautista, P2 today, keeps up your run of podiums, keeps up the fight for third in the championship.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really happy because I took a gamble. I put the SQ tire. I tried in the morning. Yeah, I did 5 laps and I didn't feel a big drop. So I thought maybe it's possible to use in the Superpole race. Yeah, I tried to start well, but you know, in this track it's difficult, and I had some riders in front of me, and I cannot use all the potential of the first lap of the SQ tire. But yeah, I can stay second. When I saw the laps remaining, I saw 5 laps, and already the tire was dropping. So I just try to manage the last 5 laps and try to don't use too much the tire, because otherwise I cannot finish the race. No? So I'm happy with the gamble and also happy to be second for race 2, and let's try to enjoy later. Thank you.
Gracias, Alvaro.
It was a gamble, but it was a low-stakes gamble because, as I said, he was only 6th position after 10 laps yesterday. So if he'd gone with the same tyre as everyone else, it was highly unlikely he was going to get on the podium. Goes for the Q tyre. We know he manages his tyre life well. And that's the sort of advantage of his lighter weight. It's got its disadvantage with the weight penalty as well. But on this occasion, it works in his favour. He comes through for second position. He manages the tyre to the finish for a great result. His best of the season, of course.
Yeah, and for Bautista, we've seen it in crunch time whenever he needs to come through to finish inside the top 3 in the championship standings. It's another podium. That's 7 in a row for him now. And again, just shows the job that he's been able to do when push has come to shove for him at the end of the season. Yeah, and that takes a great level of maturity, benefiting from his experience and making sure that he irons out those errors at these final 3 rounds, and he makes it in an Aruba IT Ducati 1-2. Let's now hear from Nicolo Bulliger after that controversial Superpole race win.
Nicolo Bulliger, P1 in Superpole race. The championship goes down to the final race.
Yeah, it was a difficult race, and thanks to my team because the bike was working very good. And yeah, see you later. Thank you.
Yeah, short and sweet from Nicolo Bulliger. He obviously wasn't going to want to volunteer too much as far as his thoughts about the collision were concerned. I'm sure we'll be talking about it over the course of today a fair amount. Nicolo Bulliger just focusing on the fact that he's got to the end and he's won the race. You can see the reaction there in the pit box. Tommy, his crew chief, not celebrating that one. Even Cami, his girlfriend, making sure that it's pretty muted down there. Anything but muted down in Parc Ferme. And for Bulliger, ultimately, he's been able to win the race. He needs to, as he could do down there in Parc Ferme, just shut out the noise from the fans down there and just focus on this afternoon's race. 22 points is the difference. Still unlikely that he wins the championship, but it goes to the last race and anything can happen. Yes, completely agree. Bulliger, Bautista, Iannone, your podium trio. We have talked about Andrea Iannone. We haven't mentioned the riders outside of the podium positions. There were a couple of standout performances there. Xavi Vierque, P4, his best of the year. Yeah, and really good weekend for Xavi. He was fast yesterday. Looked like he was in podium contention and able to come away with another top 5 finish, and really good performance from him on the Honda. And obviously this is the last weekend for him with the Honda team, but he's signing off in style. And quick word for Taz McKenzie as well. 7th position, couldn't hold on ahead of Andrea Locatelli in the end, but capitalises on the attrition with Razgatlioglu, Gardner and Ray out of the race. Scores a handy haul of points and his best finish in World SBK. Yeah, really good to be able to have a result like that and come through inside those top 9 spots. Gives you a good grid position for race 2, and that's critical for Taz. So let's go through your podium trio then. It is an all Ducati podium. Andrea Iannone taking 3rd position. It's his 8th rostrum finish. And after 27 race starts without a podium, dating back to race 2 in Phillip Island, he is back in the rostrum spots here. 2nd place goes to Alvaro Bautista, matching his best result of the season. Podium number 127 continues to increase his record with Ducati, and in his final weekend with the Aruba.it Ducati team, it is his 20th podium of 2025, and for Nicolo Bulliger it is win number 19, and it is his 13th of 2025, and perhaps his most crucial yet, because it delays the championship decider to race 2 of the 2025 Spanish rounds. Unbelievable drama in the Superpole race this morning. We said the only way that the championship would go down to the wire would be a non-score for Razgat Lioglu, and that's exactly what happened. And we'll be talking about that at the start of our race 2 build-up, and throughout the day, I'm sure. In the end, Razgat Lioglu has got to focus on making sure that he gets to the end of race 2 now and doesn't open the door to Nicolo Bulliger to win the title. Latest news from the medical centre along the bottom of your screen that Jonathan Rea will require a checkup before race 2 this afternoon, and fingers crossed we get to see Rea go to the grid and enjoy his last race in World SBK. 22 points is the difference in the championship between Razgat Lioglu and Bulliger. A non-score for Toprak, so equals the record of consecutive podiums, but it ends there. And that is his first non-score since all the way back in Phillip Island, and the first time he has been off the podium since Assen. Manufacturers' Championship, that's a crucial race because a non-score for Toprak Razgat Lioglu, with Michael van der Mark scoring only 1 point down in 9th position, means that BMW now trail by 19. And bear in mind, Ducati had 3 riders on the podium there, and 4 ahead of Michael van der Mark. They have now one hand on the Manufacturers' Trophy, but it's the Riders' Championship that will be the main focus, and it is Razgat Lioglu who leads still ahead of race 2 this afternoon. Just over 2 hours then to go until we're back for one final time with the last race of the 2025 season, and it is a last race decider. 125 days of winter before we go racing again in 2026, so make sure you don't miss it.